So last time we looked at a bunch of different rhetorical techniques. We could kind of classify these all as non-coercive in some sense. People generally don't think of these as being manipulative, and you see them everywhere, right? They're very common. We talked about rhetorical techniques in writing and speech, in delivery and imagery, and we distinguish these from rational argumentation, which is generally the purview of philosophy, reasoning, giving arguments and justifications for our views. In any case, what I tried to drive home for you last class is that these different devices and rhetorical techniques influence how people think and behave. When it comes to writing and speech, we talked about a lot of different devices that might be used, right? Simile and metaphor, alliteration, hyperbole. What's hyperbole? Exaggeration, over-exaggeration, good. We could put down a bunch of other literary devices here too. Conjuring images, right? This helps express some piece of information. It invokes a particular feeling or perhaps a wish, an emotion, stokes a desire, something like this. You could also use sarcasm and irony to great effect, right? This is probably how you appear humorous in front of your friends, right? And by doing that, you're influencing how they think and behave in a certain way. We can use generalizations. We can analogize, likening two different events or things together. All of these we characterized as rhetorical devices in speech and or writing. Now, as you move through your life, and as we move through this class, you're going to encounter countless number of texts. Do you all remember what a text is? How did we define that? Who remembers? Or who can look back at their notes? Yes?
Is it anything that is written?
Close.
Is it like a series of statements or something?
That's an argument. Say that again? Anything you can read. Yeah, what were you going to say, Sage? Purpose is normally going to be part of it. We defined it as anything you can read or interpret. This is a conception of text that has been around in philosophy for a while, and philosophers have used it to, well, interpret not only written texts like books and articles, but also situations, environments, things like this. All of these would fall under this kind of notion of text. And I brought up this kind of conception because I think it's helpful to look at the world in this way. You're constantly being exposed to all of these different texts, things that can be interpreted or read. When you have an encounter with someone on the street and they act a particular way, right? That's something that can be interpreted or read. When you're reading an article for this class, that's obviously something that can be interpreted or read. There is meaning in all of these different things. And unless you're actively searching for it, your understanding of it is going to be limited. So what all of these things have in common, these rhetorical devices, is that they're used in order to get you to think or behave in a certain way. When you encounter a text then, you should consider the acronym we looked at last time, SOAPs. Who remembers what this stands for? You can shout it out if you remember. Good. And we defined all those for you, right? What was the subject? Topic of the text. Good. What's the occasion or context? Time and place, environment, context in which the text is given. Good. A? Audience. What's that? Right. The person for whom perhaps the text is intended or the group that the text is given to. P? Purpose. What's that? Right. The reason or the telos, perhaps, of the text. And then S. Speaker. What's that? Right. Either those who produced it and or those who are giving it. You're going to want to think about all of these different things whenever you are trying to understand a text or interpret a situation, which is an example of a text. Okay? Reflect on this. What is the author's message? What are they trying to convey? Why are they expressing it in this way? Seriously reflecting on these questions will help you understand the text you encounter much, much better. So do that as we go throughout, looking at the text in this course. Okay? Okay, good. So we talked about these kinds of devices. You can also use rhetorical techniques in your presentation of a text and how you deliver it, right? In the images that you place before those around you. We talked about body posture, right? This has an impact on how the text lands. If you're giving a speech or a lecture or doing a dance, perhaps, right? The different movements the person engages in. Their facial expressions. Their volume, tone. We could also lump, artwork into this category. What are the medium and colors that are being used? How are the objects represented in space? What is the style of the piece of imagery? What technique did they use, etc.? All of these things are rhetorical techniques that people use to their advantage in order to persuade people of things, right? Either to accept their message or to get them to do something. These generally we broadly defined as rhetoric. Now the last one we could also call an instance of rhetoric. It is a kind of technique for getting people to think or do something. But we contrasted it with these two. Rational argumentation, or logos, is, as I said before, generally the purview of philosophy. As we move forward in this class, this is what I'm going to want you to focus on. What is the evidence for your position? What reasons do you have for giving this position? What reasons can you figure out for why the other person's argument is bad? What are your justifications for your views and beliefs? This is what the whole practice of philosophy is about. Making this explicit and laying this out. To try to appeal to people's reason to convince them of something. Either to take on a different belief or engage in a different way of life. And the tension between logos and these other techniques has been around for thousands of years. As I tried to express to you with the brief overview we did of Socrates and Plato. We're going to keep returning to that as we go throughout the class. We haven't listed all of the rhetorical techniques, though, one might use in order to persuade one of something. So today we're going to look at ones that, often we don't explicitly talk about. A lot of these are things you implicitly know already, or perhaps have heard about or experienced. But I think it's useful to get them on the table because you will encounter these throughout your life. Perhaps you've used them before. These are also very effective ways of persuading people of things. Okay? Now, I will not be responsible for how you use these, but I hope if you use them at all, you will use them for good. I waive any responsibility I might have. Sage, could I borrow your notebook? Just for a second. Thank you. Through the magic of words, I just acquired a notebook. That is a lot of great information about critical thinking, right? And what we've looked at so far. Do you want to use this for the writing assignment later in the class? Why?
Otherwise, I don't have paper to write on.
You wouldn't have paper to write on. You wouldn't have all your lovely notes, right? There's a lot of good stuff in here, right? Is it valuable to you?
Yeah.
Yeah? How much would you pay me for it?
Probably nothing.
Nothing? Okay, well, I'm going to keep it then. You're not going to get it. But you really want this notebook, don't you? It would be good to have. So, what would you be willing to give for it? I don't believe you. I think you'd be willing to give a lot. How about $5? No? You sure? You're not going to get it back unless I get that $5. Okay. People do this in business a lot. What is one way of effectively persuading someone of something? Well, playing off of exclusivity and scarcity. This is what companies who produce products do all the time, right? How do they get you to buy that new Stanley that comes in a color they've never made before? Limited edition, limited time, right? Act fast, act now, or else you're never going to have this thing. You might try to fill a need in the other person, or convince them a need isn't being met. And so much of this can be done simply through the use of words. You could also create a new need in them. If I've managed to convince you of the value of philosophy, I've done this to you already, right? I've created in you a need or desire for this thing that you've never studied before, or this way of life that you hadn't properly considered before. This is an extremely powerful rhetorical technique that you can use. And you probably do it all the time, even without thinking about it. People are certainly trying to do it to you every day, right? Oh, your need isn't being met by so-and-so? Well, here, I can help with that, right? You just come to me. You do what I want. There's our first technique of the day. What are other ways you can persuade people to think or do something? Bribe? Good. What else? Blackmail? Exactly, yeah. What is blackmail? How does blackmailing work, Emma?
You have like a piece of information that they don't want out, so you kind of use it against them. Like if someone doesn't want let's say I don't like a picture of myself, they're gonna be like, oh well, I have this picture of you. So unless you do what I say, I'm gonna tell everyone about it.
This is why you don't send nudes to people, right? That you're not in a relationship with, for instance. They could use it against you. People use information against others all of the time, right? I know what you did on prom night, sister. If you don't give me all the money in your bank account, I'm going to tell mom and dad. Right? This happens all the time. Blackmail is a very effective persuasive technique. A little bit more innocuous, how about promising someone a gift or reward? Isn't this persuasive? Yeah, I like it. Yeah, have you ever been compelled to do something because someone said, hey, do this thing, I'll give you this thing, right? Maybe I'm doing this to you. I promise you knowledge and wisdom by taking my class. No, I wouldn't promise that. But you get the point, right? People do this all the time. How do you get people to sign up for your new subscription? Oh, you get a free duffel bag, by signing up this month. How do you get people to do anything? Well, oftentimes it's transactional. You promise them a certain gift or reward for doing the thing you want them to do. How else might we persuade people of things? What comes to your mind when you hear psychology? Manipulation? Conditioning? Social conditioning? Great. I love where your head's at. Keep that kind of view. Hopefully, y'all won't come to think of psychology and philosophy as this manipulative thing, but how much social conditioning do we experience and perpetuate simply through using words? A lot. How so? How do we do that? How would I condition y'all to keep doing your work and coming to class?
You could use our notes on the test.
You can use your notes on the test.
We're given incentives.
Like what?
For keeping this thing, we get extra credit.
That's right. And all of you who don't have it out right now, shame on you. What did I just do there? What word did I just use? Shame. Praise. Blame. All of these things are very effective rhetorical techniques. How does the parent get their child? Well, to keep picking up their toys, they praise them, right? How do I get you to do what I want you to do in this class? I praise you when you do something good, and I shame you when you do something bad, right? This happens everywhere, all the time. Think of your own example. Have you praised or shamed one of your friends lately because you were trying to persuade them to do or not do something? Someone give me an example. Or are you too embarrassed? Yeah.
Someone wants to go to a certain gym. You say, no, it's too expensive. We want to lose money.
Well, that's another rhetorical technique. How about praise or shame, though?
My roommate took out the trash, so I thanked her.
So you thanked her, right? And what do you do if your roommate always leaves their dishes in the sink and never cleans them?
You shame them.
You shame them? Yeah? Maybe you're like, I'm going to teach them a lesson, right? I'm going to bring it up to their face as I'm standing right next to the dishes and shame them. And I'm going to tell them what an irresponsible person they're being. Right? Is that not effective? Our society operates on praise and shame. Yeah.
Okay, but sometimes I feel like it's necessary, especially for safety. Like, my roommates keep forgetting to lock our door. And I'm like, lock the door.
And so, yeah, what else do you say to them?
Like, I don't know. I just tell them to lock the door. That, like, you're being unsafe. Like, if your stuff gets stolen, not my fault.
The use of praise and blame and shame might not always be bad. Yes or no? Or is it always bad?
No.
Maybe it serves a really important social function. Do we want, for example, people walking around USF campus playing with their own crap?
What?
No! So we would shame them if we ever saw somebody doing that, right? We're like, you're gross, what are you doing? That's disgusting, right? A very effective way of persuading people to think or behave in a certain way. What's another one? Well, if you've ever had a traumatic relationship or perhaps been in a friendship with a narcissist, how about playing off of one's insecurities? How do you get that bitch Sandra to stay away from your man? Well, maybe you start planting little seeds about how, oh, I know you've always struggled with your weight. You are fat and ugly. You're not deserving of him at all. Right? Stoke insecurity in them. Play off of that. Heighten that. Exacerbate that. Is that not an effective rhetorical technique? You don't even need to touch them. You can just use your words. That might persuade her to stay away from your boo, right? Or the guy you're trying to get for yourself. What's another one? Well, this list is not going to be exhaustive. But how about playing off of one's expectations? Can you all provide me with an example of this? Have you ever had a time where you knew someone was expecting something and you used that to your advantage? Yes or no?
With my sister, she has to think about college soon, so she's expecting to go to college, so she should start saving.
Right. And so you tell her these things, right? Perhaps saving for her will be to your advantage somehow. Maybe, she's spending all of her money going out and buying things she doesn't need, and for some reason that really rubs you the wrong way. You think it's irrational and dumb. And so what do? Well, you know she's going to expect to go to college, so you start drilling her about what she knows about where she's applying and whether she saved money, whether she's actually making her plans to do this well. And that will prevent her from coming home late, night after night, and slamming the door and waking you up, right? You can do this to your advantage. What's a really simple one that people engage in every day? Are you always honest with the people around you?
Is lying?
Why wouldn't it be? Can't lying be a very effective way to persuade people to think or do something? We could distinguish between omission, denial, lying. All of these could be very effective, right? How do you persuade your mom or dad not to punish you?
You deny you did it.
You deny that you do it. Or you don't tell them that you were out late last night seeing your girlfriend again past curfew, right? You omit that. How do you prevent your roommate from getting mad at you that there are fruit flies in the dorm because you're leaving food out again? Well, you lie and you say your other roommate did it, right? Yeah, Jenna was leaving out food again. She must have attracted these fruit flies. Yeah? Effective? Persuasive? It can be, depending on how good of a liar you are. But yes, certainly. We saw this a little bit in the fallacies we looked at. But another very simple but effective technique could simply be redirecting one's attention. I'm sure you all have had this experience. You accidentally left something out that you shouldn't have left out. And so what do you do when your mom or dad comes in the room? Well, you try to direct their attention somewhere else, right? So you can hide the thing quickly, so you don't get in trouble. Magicians do this all the time, right? To persuade you that their magic is real, that they're amazing, right? A very simple but effective technique. Could anybody provide another example? Redirecting one's attention.
The red hair.
Oh, sorry. Emma, and then we'll go to you.
You kind of change the topic and more time in that. Like if they're trying to sell you something, you kind of redirect it into a different way.
Sure. Yeah.
There's a red herring.
Your red herring is an example of this when it comes to argumentation. Yep, exactly. Yeah. Or, for example, take this. I met this really weird guy in the department this morning. Don't know who he is. He came out of nowhere. And what did I do to get this weird guy to go away? Well, I redirected his attention to the fact, I have class starting soon. I really need to prepare. Okay, all right. I'll go. This actually happened. This is not a lie. Maybe. No, it's not a lie. But yes, it can be very effective. What we saw last class could also be useful. Simple repetition. How do you get your point across? How do you get people to internalize the information or keep their attention focused on something? Well, you repeat yourself again and again. Isn't this how the infomercials get you to memorize their jingles? Or memorize their numbers so you can call and order the product, right? They'll say the number 15 times in the span of 48 seconds. Yeah? Or if you want to solve a problem in your relationship, again, you keep drawing your partner's attention to that issue. You repeat yourself, you repeat yourself, you repeat yourself, so it sticks in their mind. And you hope by doing that it will persuade them to think and act differently, right? Yeah. What's another thing you can do? Well, did anybody here need a ride home from high school ever? Did you ever need a ride and one of your friends couldn't do it? So you had to find somebody else to give you a ride? How did you do that?
Pay them.
Pay them?
You pretend to pay them and they just forget about it.
Sure. Do you try to buddy up with them? Like, hey, buddy, we're friends, right? Can you give me a ride today?
You get him to remember that, like, the time where you did it to him, but you never did it.
Right. Yeah, put him in your debt, maybe. We've all done this. Claiming friendship. We're friends, right? You would help out a friend, even if you're not particularly close with them, right? If you manage to convince them that your relationship is stronger than it is, yeah, you can get them to do a lot of things, right? Certainly. Does anybody remember the photo that I put up in the Logical Fallacies Day? It's from the movie Mean Girls. Have y'all seen this movie? What happens a lot in high school? Well, cliques form, right? Maybe sometimes the cliques don't really like each other that much. They don't hang out with each other. People segregate into these groups. Well, how do you get someone out of your group? Yeah. You use some form of social exclusion. You find some way to exclude this person. You don't want that girl who's been eyeing your boyfriend to come to that party on Friday, so what do? You don't tell her about the party, right? Or you get everybody else that are your friends to hate that girl too, so that when she does show up, she's going to leave because they're saying nasty things to her, right? Simply by using your words, you can exclude people from situations and opportunities. Y'all may have done this in a very indirect way if you had an interview here, right? Simply through using your words, you convinced the admissions team that you ought to be included and the other applicants ought to be excluded. Yes? What else can you do? Well, let's get back to relationships. Your mom says to you while you're here at college taking summer classes, you know, you've really been spending a lot of time away from home. You know, it's really hard for your dad and I that you're not around as much. You know, we miss you. You should really spend more time with us. It would be the right and good thing to do. Don't you feel bad leaving us here all alone? What is that? Guilt tripping. You ever guilt trip someone? Very effective. If you don't believe me, just think about your grandma or your aunt who wants you to do something. And so they guilt tripped you into doing it. How many times does this happen to you? A lot, right, Xavier? Yes, guilt tripping can be very effective. If we want to get a little bit darker, how can you persuade someone to do what you want? Well, you devalue them. You engage in devaluing, right? If you're in an unhealthy relationship, this may have happened to you. How did the person get you to stick around? Well, by using their words, they got you to question your own worth, devalue you, perhaps tried to convince you that you're only good so long as you're with them. And really, you're not good. You can't do anything by yourself anyway. You're hopeless. You're useless. Anybody ever been on the receiving end of this? Devaluation can be very powerful. It's close to playing off of one's insecurities, right? Okay, well, let's just get a little bit darker. Think about what happens in those spy movies. James Bond movies, okay? How does the bad guy get our James Bond to trip up at the casino? Well, maybe he will parade some lovely lady, some femme fatale in front of him, who's wearing this sheer dress, right? Give him something to look at and distract him. Perhaps that undercover femme fatale can even persuade the spy to lower his guard and come back to her room. Yeah? You ever see this happen? Happens a lot in movies and TV shows, right? That's just one form of sexual manipulation. Seduction is a rhetorical technique. How do you get that girl to sleep with you? You seduce her. Or how do you get that guy to start going out with you? You maybe might try to seduce him. If you want someone to latch on to you and be at your hip and your beck and call, what else might you do? Starts with L. Love bombing. What's love bombing? Anybody know?
It's like you kind of shower this person with love and gifts and things.
Shower them with compliments and affection and gifts.
And then you take it away all of a sudden.
You might, if that's effective,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, how do you get somebody in your good graces? Why not shower them with affection and compliments and gifts and love? Perhaps we've all fallen prey to this. I don't know. And so, that's one way you could do it. You could also shower them with attention. This marker is starting to crap out on me. You might give them a lot of your time. You ever see one of your friends fall victim to this? So then you know it's effective, right? There are people out there who do this every day. What else? Well, we've already talked about blackmail, but let's be a little bit more direct. How do you get that kid to stop lighting dog poop outside your front door? Maybe call the cops. Maybe slap him if you wanted to get physical. Just using your words, what would you do? Threaten him, right? Aren't threats effective? Yes, they can be very effective. You can engage in all of these just using your words. You can persuade people to think or behave in a certain way. You can condition them so that they develop a certain personality trait or attachment. All of this can be done using simply your words. A little bit more benign example. But how might you persuade someone to think or do something? Well, how about name calling? It's simple. Might call you back to your elementary school days. But this can also be an effective rhetorical technique. Finally, we have two that, if you've been paying attention to the psychological talk in our world today, you've probably heard of. Anybody ever hear of projection? What's projection? If someone's like, "You're projecting," what are they saying?
That like you're putting your own thoughts and feelings onto this person.
Right.
Instead of like actually looking inward.
Right. And what do these pop psychology articles say? Who engages in this a lot? Cheaters. That's what these articles say, right? If you're accused excessively of cheating, that's probably a clue that your partner's cheating on you, right? Because they're projecting. This can be a very effective technique. How might you get your wife, who loves to go out to the club with her girlfriends on Friday and Saturday, to not go out as often? Well, how about you accuse her of being a cheater? And then because she's concerned, right, about this relationship and she doesn't want a divorce, she's, okay, I'll stay in for the future. Right? Rhetorical technique. It might not be a good or nice thing to do, right? But these are persuasive techniques. Finally, we got the big one. That starts with a G. Gaslighting. There it is. What's gaslighting? Does anybody know where this word comes from? Comes from an... Yeah?
From the film where I think the husband was lighting a gas fire, and then whenever the wife was in there, he had it on whenever she told the husband about it. He turned it off to make her think she was crazy.
Yeah, he would turn it off or turn it down, and she would say, "Do you think the light has gotten like lower in here? Or is the light off?" No, the light's on. You can't see it? What are you talking about? So what is gaslighting? Say that again. Acting the fool? Yeah, that might be a part of it. What are you getting the person to doubt if you're gaslighting them? Themselves and their own perceptions. Their own perceptions. Okay? If you're gaslighting someone, you're getting someone to question their own perceptions and view of reality. This can be a very effective way to persuade people of things. You incessantly deny their experience and their perception. You tell them that's not the way that it is. You tell them it's actually this other way. And what ends up happening? Well, they do start to question their own perceptions and their own view of reality. If you just keep it going up long enough, intently enough, intense enough, perhaps they'll start believing whatever you say because they've lost their own confidence in their own views, in their own perceptions. Let's do one or two more. But we're going to use a different marker. This is more benign compared to the ones that we've just been looking at. But how do you persuade someone that they haven't addressed your arguments or your concerns? How about by moving the goalposts? That ever happen to you? This happens all the time in conversations, especially online. You're arguing about the latest immigration policy, and person says X. You criticize X. And then they respond with something completely different by moving the goalposts, saying, you didn't really address what I was saying. Kind of similar to Mott and Bailey in that way, right? There's a redirecting of attention. There's a moving of the scope of the conversation or of the point. Finally, similar to name calling, what do politicians do a lot? Has anybody been seeing any political ads on TV recently? How do those ads always go? What do the ads say? Make promises, sure. They slander their opponent, right? Or they accuse them of things. They engage in a smear campaign. Maybe you were subject to this in high school. Somebody led a smear campaign against you and got you exiled from a group or a club. Yeah, that can be very powerful. Doesn't matter if the accusations have any merit. If a student, for instance, accused me, a professor, of sexual harassment, it wouldn't matter if there was no evidence of it. I would probably just lose my job because that would be the safe thing to do for the institution. And as you should know by now, HR is never on the side of the employee, but on the side of the institution. Okay, did we get all of these? I think we did. Now, this list is not exhaustive, but it is something you should be aware of. There's a nigh infinite number of ways to use your words. You can do so morally or immorally, to build others up or to tear them down. But these are all examples of rhetorical techniques that you can engage in simply through what you say. And they are very persuasive. They might not be good, they might be manipulative and mean, but they work. Why? Well, because we are emotional creatures. And we care what other people think about us. We don't want to feel bad. We want to make others happy. Okay? And we want to be seen in a good light. So as we move forward, as you move forward in your life, these are considerations that should pop up to you. Because again, there are countless forces that are vying for your attention, that are vying for your money, that are trying to persuade you to think or act in a certain way. Whether it is your professor who's a leftist or your professor who's a Republican. Whether it is that company that produces consumer goods or it's the government who's trying to get you to use your AC less or use less water when you water your lawn. These are all things you may encounter, and they are all rhetorical techniques. So, be on the lookout for them. Any questions about this stuff? Does it make sense? Okay, great. Well then, if we don't have any questions, let's take a break. Come back at 1 o'clock, and we'll get started with our writing assignment. So make sure you have paper and a pencil, and we will be good to go.